What's your emergency? What's going on? Who got hurt? What's happening? Someone's been shot. My stepdad shot them.
Send every available unit to the 3rd Street Bank right now.
This is the voice of 14-year-old Thomas Muller. He was an ordinary boy from an ordinary home with a loving father and stepmother and 2 brothers. But this 911 call was far from ordinary. It was the sound of confusion and terror as this peaceful family's life shattered in an instant. As Thomas's stepmother lay dying, she'd been shot. But who was holding the gun? And how had things taken such a dark turn for this tight-knit military family? Have you had these types of issues in the past where you just don't remember things? Like I said, he talked a big game about a lot of things. From the start, this seemed a simple, if baffling, case of a soldier's rage and betrayal in the family home. But there was far more to the story. From a troubled deployment to a quiet suburban street, who was really to blame for a deadly confrontation? Let's dive into the story of Connor Donaldson. On March 18, 2015, everything changed for the Donaldson family. They were living in the quiet suburb of Maple Grove, a picturesque town just outside Minneapolis, Minnesota. They had a reasonably comfortable life. Connor Donaldson was a decorated Army sergeant recently returned from deployment overseas, and Maria Donaldson was a guidance counselor with the Hennepin County School District. Their house was quiet and ordinary, a charming 4-bedroom colonial just off the peaceful Elm Creek. It had a large backyard for the kids to play, including a basketball hoop and a wooden swing set. These kids were loved and well looked after. There was no reason to suspect anything would go wrong. On the evening of the 18th, Connor was supposed to be at a veteran support group meeting across town. Maria, meanwhile, was home with the kids. The kids were Brandon, the 5-year-old son of Connor and Maria together, Thomas, the 14-year-old from Maria's first marriage, and their foster son, 19-year-old Jeffrey Krista. Maria usually took 5-year-old Brandon to bed at about 9:30 p.m. It was Brandon's habit to stay in his own room through the night. 14-year-old Thomas went to his own room around the same time. 19-year-old Jeffrey had more freedom, having become an adult 8 months earlier. On the night of the 18th, he stayed up working on a project for school, for his American history class in the living room area. We're both upstairs in our rooms, separate rooms. So, what happened after she went to bed? Is Maria still awake, or is Maria sleeping at this time? I don't know. Jeffrey was watching videos and wasn't keeping track of other people's movements in the house. He worked on his project until about 11:45 p.m., when he decided to take a break and get something to drink from the kitchen. But he never made it there. After some point in time, you don't know how long. How long has it been? You can't go downstairs because you heard something, correct? Jeffrey paused at the top of the stairs. He heard voices from the master bedroom, his foster mother Maria's voice and another man's voice. But it wasn't Connor. Connor wasn't supposed to be home yet. You go down the stairs anyway. What do you see when you get there? I don't know how to say this. From there, no one knows exactly what happened. Only that 14-year-old Thomas woke up at about 12:20 a.m. to the sound of gunshots, 3 of them, loud and terrifying. He rushed out of his room to find his father Connor standing in the hallway, a Glock 19 service pistol in his hand, and blood on the carpet leading into the master bedroom. Before we continue with this shocking story, if you're enjoying this deep dive into true crime, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest cases. Drop a comment below telling us what you think happened here. We read every single one. Now, let's get back to the story. 911, what's your emergency? My stepdad, he shot my mom. He shot your mom? You need to take a deep breath for me so I can understand you. Oh God, please hurry. Maria Donaldson had been shot twice, once in the chest and once in the abdomen. She had tried to shield herself with her arms, and the forensic evidence showed she'd been shot at close range. Jeffrey Krista had also been shot, once in the shoulder and once in the chest as he apparently tried to flee the bedroom. The weapon was Connor's military-issue Glock 19, registered and legal. Both victims were already beyond saving. The paramedics arrived within 7 minutes, but Maria was pronounced dead at the scene at 12:41 a.m. Jeffrey died in the ambulance en route to Hennepin County Medical Center at 12:58 a.m. At this point, Connor was sitting on the front steps of the house, the gun placed carefully on the ground beside him, his hands on his head. Thomas was still on the phone with 911, his younger brother Brandon crying in his room, and the family's lives were forever destroyed. At 12:23 a.m., a local police sergeant received a call on dispatch about shots fired in the peaceful residential area. He rushed to the house in Maple Grove, pulling into the driveway to find Connor Donaldson sitting motionless on the front steps. Thomas was visible through the front window, still holding the phone he'd used to call 911, pleading with the operator to send help. The sergeant approached Connor with his weapon drawn and ordered him to lie face down on the ground. Connor complied without resistance. He was handcuffed and placed in the patrol car. He said nothing except, "I came home early. I found them together. I just snapped." When the police entered the house, they found the scene of a double homicide. Maria and Jeffrey's bodies were in the master bedroom. The physical evidence was overwhelming. Connor's fingerprints on the gun, gunshot residue on his hands and clothes, and his own admission at the scene. But the question remained, why? Why would this decorated soldier, this father and husband, turn to such awful measures? Why would he kill his wife and their foster son in a fit of rage? Let's talk about Connor Donaldson. He was born in April 1978 and had what seemed like a stable childhood in rural Wisconsin. His parents were Jeffrey Donaldson Sr. and Patricia Donaldson, both hardworking middle-class people. Jeffrey Sr. worked at a paper mill, and Patricia was a nurse. Connor was the middle child of three with an older sister and a younger brother. He was a good student, played football in high school, and joined the Army right after graduation in 1996. Connor served with distinction. He was deployed to Iraq in 2004 and Afghanistan in 2009 and 2012. He received a Purple Heart after being injured by an IED in Kandahar province in 2011. His service record was exemplary, multiple commendations, promotions, and respect from his fellow soldiers. But those who knew him well said the deployments changed him, especially the last one in 2012. According to a fellow veteran who served with him, Connor became increasingly paranoid and controlling. He talked obsessively about his family back home, about his wife Maria and whether she was being faithful. He checked her social media constantly, called her multiple times a day, and became enraged if she didn't answer immediately. His buddies tried to tell him he was spiraling, but Connor insisted everything was fine. He said he just loved his family and wanted to protect them. Connor met Maria in 2007 at a veterans barbecue fundraiser in Minneapolis. Maria had been divorced for 2 years at that point, raising her son Thomas on her own. Her first marriage had ended amicably in 2005 when her ex-husband relocated to Oregon for work. She met Connor, and they connected immediately. He was charming, attentive, and seemed stable despite his military background. They married in June 2008, and Brandon was born in February 2010. It isn't clear exactly when the Donaldsons decided to become foster parents, but they were approved in 2013 after Connor returned from his final deployment. Jeffrey Krista came to live with them in September 2014, just 6 months before the murders. Jeffrey had aged out of the group home system and needed a stable family environment to finish his senior year of high school. Maria, with her background in counseling, believed she could help him. The 5 of them, Connor, Maria, Thomas, Brandon, and foster son Jeffrey, made what appeared to be a tight-knit family unit, at least from the outside. But despite the picture-perfect facade, things were not as they seemed in the Donaldson household. Connor struggled with PTSD from his deployments. He had nightmares, angry outbursts, and periods of deep depression. He was prescribed medication by the VA, but rarely took it consistently. He attended a veteran support group on Wednesday evenings, but often skipped sessions. Maria tried to be supportive, but Connor's behavior became increasingly erratic. The relationship between Connor and Maria began to deteriorate in late 2014. According to Maria's sister, Krista Matthews, Maria had confided that Connor was becoming possessive and jealous. He accused her of flirting with male colleagues. He checked her phone. He demanded to know where she was at all times. Maria considered leaving him, but was afraid of how Connor might react. She loved him and wanted to help him through his struggles, but she was exhausted. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Krista was adjusting to life with the Donaldsons. He was a quiet, respectful young man who kept to himself mostly. He was grateful for the stability the family provided. He attended Maple Grove Senior High School, where he was in his final semester. His teachers described him as polite and hardworking. He was taking AP History and planned to attend community college in the fall. But according to Thomas's later testimony, something shifted in the household in early 2015. Jeffrey and Maria began spending more time together. Maria helped Jeffrey with his college applications. They'd have coffee together in the mornings before school. Connor noticed and didn't like it, but Maria insisted it was innocent. She was just being a good foster parent and mentor. Connor, however, became increasingly suspicious. He started coming home early from work unannounced. He'd check Maria's text messages when she was in the shower. He'd ask Thomas questions about what Maria and Jeffrey did when he wasn't home. Thomas, only 14, was caught in the middle and didn't know what to say. If you're gripped by this story and want to see more shocking true crime cases like this, smash that like button and share this video with a friend who loves true crime. And don't forget, we post new cases every Tuesday and Friday, so subscribe and hit the bell icon. All right, let's continue. On March 17, 2015, the day before the shooting, Connor told his coworker at the VA Logistics Center, where he worked as a supply coordinator, that he thought Maria was having an affair. The coworker, David Strunk, later testified that Connor seemed off, agitated and distracted. Connor said he'd been tracking Maria's phone and knew she was lying about where she'd been. David urged Connor to talk to a counselor, but Connor brushed him off. That evening, Connor told Maria he was going to his Wednesday support group, but he never went. Instead, according to cell phone records and surveillance footage, Connor drove to a Cabela's sporting goods store in Rogers, Minnesota, where he purchased a box of 9mm ammunition at 7:43 p.m. He then drove to a parking lot near their home and waited. At approximately 11:52 p.m., Connor entered the house through the side garage door using his key. He went upstairs quietly, and that's when he heard voices coming from the master bedroom. Maria's voice and Jeffrey's voice. According to Connor's later statement to detectives, he stood outside the door and listened for several minutes. He heard laughter. He heard movement. He heard what he described as intimate sounds. Connor later told police, "I opened the door. They were together, in my bed." Jeffrey tried to explain. Maria tried to explain, but I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was this ringing in my ears. I pulled out my gun. I didn't even remember loading it. Jeffrey tried to run. I shot him. Then I shot Maria. Then I shot Jeffrey again. And then it was quiet. Connor called it a fog of war moment, a dissociative episode triggered by the perceived betrayal in his PTSD. But prosecutors would later argue that the purchase of ammunition hours before, the deliberate decision to skip his support group, and the calculated way he entered the house all pointed to premeditation. When police interviewed Thomas the next day, the 14-year-old was traumatized but tried to help. He said his dad had been acting weird for weeks, more angry, more paranoid. He said his stepmom had seemed sad, and he said Jeffrey was just a normal guy who didn't cause any trouble. Thomas said he never saw anything inappropriate between Maria and Jeffrey, but he knew his dad thought something was going on. Brandon, only 5, was too young to provide useful testimony. He told the child psychologist assigned to his case that he missed his mommy and didn't understand why Daddy had to go away. Connor Donaldson was booked and taken to Hennepin County Jail. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. At his arraignment, he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, claiming his PTSD and the emotional shock of discovering the affair caused him to lose control. But as the investigation continued, the picture became more complicated. Forensic analysis of Maria and Jeffrey's phones and computers revealed no evidence of an affair. No inappropriate texts, no secret meetings, no romantic emails. Maria's sister insisted Maria would never have cheated on Connor, especially not with their teenage foster son. Jeffrey's friends from school said he was a shy, introverted kid who wasn't even dating anyone. The prosecution's theory: Connor had imagined the affair. His PTSD, paranoia, and jealousy had created a delusion. He'd convinced himself Maria was unfaithful, and when he came home that night and found Jeffrey and Maria talking. Perhaps Jeffrey had gone downstairs because he couldn't sleep. Perhaps Maria had heard him and come out to check on him. Connor's delusions became reality in his mind. He saw what he expected to see, not what was actually happening, and he killed 2 innocent people because of it. Connor's defense team argued that even if the affair wasn't real, Connor believed it was real, and his PTSD made him unable to control his actions. They brought in expert witnesses on combat-related PTSD and how trauma can distort perception and impulse control. They showed his military records, his medical records, and testimony from fellow veterans about how Connor was not the same after Afghanistan. The prosecution countered with their own experts who said that PTSD does not cause homicidal violence in the vast majority of cases. They argued that Connor was responsible for not taking his medication, not attending therapy consistently, and not seeking help when he felt himself losing control. They argued that buying ammunition hours before the killing showed planning and intent. And they emphasized that 2 people were dead: a loving mother and guidance counselor and a vulnerable young man who'd finally found a safe home, because Connor Donaldson chose violence over communication. The trial lasted 4 weeks in October 2015. The jury deliberated for 11 hours over 2 days. On October 29, 2015, Connor Donaldson was found guilty on both counts of first-degree murder. The insanity defense was rejected. The jury found that while Connor may have been suffering from PTSD, he was still capable of understanding right from wrong and had acted with premeditation when he purchased the ammunition. On December 3, 2015, Connor was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. At sentencing, Maria's sister Krista read a victim impact statement through tears saying, "Maria dedicated her life to helping others, helping students, helping foster children, helping veterans like Connor. She tried to save him, and he killed her for it." Jeffrey's biological mother, who had lost custody of him years earlier due to her own struggles with addiction, also spoke. She said Jeffrey finally had a chance. He had a family. He had a future, and it was stolen from him by a man who was supposed to protect him. Connor himself gave a brief statement saying only, "I'm sorry, I wish I could take it back. I wish I'd gotten help. I destroyed everything." Thomas and Brandon were placed in the custody of Maria's sister. Thomas, now 15, struggled with depression and anxiety in the aftermath of the murders. He eventually graduated high school and attended technical school, but he rarely speaks publicly about what happened that night. Brandon has no memory of his mother and only vague memories of his father. He knows the story but has been shielded from the details as much as possible. Connor Donaldson remains incarcerated at the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Oak Park Heights, where he is serving his life sentence. He has reportedly been a model prisoner and works as a tutor for other inmates seeking their GEDs. What do you think about this horrifying story? Was Connor a victim of his own untreated PTSD, or was he a jealous, controlling husband who murdered 2 innocent people based on paranoid delusions? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you made it this far, you're a true crime fanatic like us. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and check out our other videos on the most baffling cases. Until next time, stay safe, keep questioning, and we'll see you again very soon on The Decoder.